Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vedya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matra Rupena Sanstitaha, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstitaha, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Sanstitaha, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sanstitaha, Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. So, Punit, will you chant for us tonight?
Sure.
So we finished the 9th chapter last week. And in the literary device of Hemaleka instructing Hemachyuta, we've had very specific instructions in the practice of meditation. And she's begun to reveal to us, in fact, what self-realization is. And we've begun to talk about this idea of what we call nirvikalpa samadhi, absolute quiescence of the mind, when the mind has become no mind. And technically speaking, any time the mind is free from thought, that's nirvikalpa. Later on, we're going to have a discussion of what we call fleeting samadhis, where ordinary people have these moments where the mind quietens for a moment. But because of their inattentiveness to it, they don't realize that in that state, our essential nature can be revealed. So, at the end of it, remember, he saw light, he saw dark, he got all blissed out. he fell asleep. So what is the diversity of the self? I don't know what it is. So she says the self is that by which all this phenomena is known. It's always there. Self is swayambhu, self-evident. And what we want to do is withdraw our attention from the knowable. And in that silence, we're able to get a sense of who is the knower. It's always been there. We get nothing new. Okay, so now we're going to move into a discussion of what's called sahaja samadhi, which is a state beyond nirvikalpa samadhi. Would you help us out, please, Puneet?
Chapter 10, page 153. Atha pashya idham hemalekha priyam praptara sthitam nachalayat parabdatat sopi muhurtatah prabuddha unmilya netre apashyat sapriyam jagat bhuyastat padavishranti Kim ano tiva vegatah netre nyamila yadhyavat bravita devasa priyam haste samadaya sudha sundara bhashini. Then Hemalekha saw her husband, who had reached the highest state of undivided consciousness, and did not disturb him from that supreme state. He also, waking up in a muhurta, a period of 48 minutes, and opening his eyes, saw the world together with his beloved. Again, desiring the tranquility of that state, when he closed his eyes very quickly, just then she, speaking beautiful nectar-like words, said to her husband, taking hold of his hand.
So he is lost in the deepest of meditation, immersed in the bliss of samadhi. And then after a period of time, and again, how long, especially the first time the mind stays in samadhi, doesn't matter. I have been told that there's a scripture that says it only needs to last 7 seconds. I don't know. The quality of nirvikalpa with respect to time subjectively, it's like sleep. Last night I awakened in the middle of the night. I had absolutely no idea what time it was. I didn't know whether I'd been asleep 2 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. I had to ding my speaking alarm clock. The time is 2:34 a.m. Aha, okay. Couldn't tell you, because sleep is timeless subjectively. So also is samadhi. Externally, you may see the yogi, but inside there's no experience of time. And then he returns from this state, sees his wife, and then wants to return to the bliss of samadhi. Oh, yeah. Let's see what happens. Going on.
Natha kimte vyavastitam bruhi netra nimalanat unmila nadva kim syate labha labha samiraya.
Are you there?
I think we may have lost him.
Yeah, he sort of froze, and then that's it.
I'll text him. We lost you. Would someone, if they have the text in front of them, just read that verse in either finish it in the Sanskrit or read it in English?
What verse is it?
It should be the second one.
It's the fourth. Yeah, it's the fourth verse.
Chapter 10?
Yeah, I can
Chapter
read
10.
it out. I can read out the English. It says, Lord, tell me what has been resolved by you. Declare what gain or loss may occur to you by the closing or opening, by closing the eyes or opening them.
So the Hemaleka says to him as he's about ready to go back into samadhi, what is it that's gained or lost? So practically speaking, this is our issue. We've done subject-object discrimination. I am not the body, I'm not the prana, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I'm not even the ego sense. I'm beyond any movement of the mind, I'm beyond even ignorance. I am that pure awareness. But we're still left with two entities. The self and the not self. Well, I have news for you. We lied. There is no not self. What we've been calling the not self is the self too. Technical terminology, there are many ways of talking about it. We say Nirguna Brahman, Brahman without qualities, the pure subject. And actually the phenomenal world is Saguna Brahman, Brahman with qualities. This is the deeper meaning of the notion of Advaita. Can you guys all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just seeing a little icon things there, so I never know if I've been bounced offline. So the idea here is the phenomenal world is Brahman. So we look at it from two viewpoints. From one angle, the scriptures say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitya. Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world is illusion. Gaudapada titles his second chapter of the Mandukya Vaitatya, falseness. We get images like pratibimba, a reflection or an image in a mirror. But we can't miss this other idea. Chandogya thunders, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam, that's shop talk. All this means the phenomenal world, Kalu, verily, don't mistake it, is Brahman. So the two words we want to look at, three, as, through, is. God does not create a world at us and to us, but as us and through us. Right there in the phenomenal world of people, places, things, and conditions. there God is. There's not God plus something else. This becomes easy to understand if we go to the dream state. In the dream state, you are the God of your dream. You are mini Ishvara. In the dream, you create a dream body. In that body, there's a locus of perception. You look out at a dream world and a dream ego. I am this dream body. And you see a world of name and form that appears to be external to this dream body. And you have dream thoughts and feelings which are interior. But if you analyze that from the viewpoint of the waker, you see all of it, knower, knowing, and known, inside, outside, objects, feelings, body, ego, all of it is my mind appearing as a world of name and form. So this is our doorway into understanding what the world is and achieving what scriptures call sahaja samadhi. So right now, Hemachuda has, the bliss of the self, interior. But no, this terrible world, leave me alone. I want to go back to samadhi. So if you've had deep experiences in meditation, you have a sense you know your essential nature, but you come out of meditation and the world continues to upset you, you're not done yet. You're only half cooked. The next thing to do is to see the self in and through all the objects of the world. Any thoughts on this idea? Ganesh, can you help us out with the next one? Or Puneet, are you back yet?
I'm back.
All right, we lost you.
Which verse are we on? Did we do another one?
I think
verse number 5.
Verse 5.
Unmilya na prapyate kim, nimilya prapyate cha kim, tanme bruhi priyatam shreyatum, ichhami te sthitam. What is not obtained by obtaining the eyes, and what is obtained by closing them? Dearest, tell me that. I wish to hear about your state.
So she says, what is it if I shut out the world by closing my eyes, or I then perceive the world by opening my eyes? What is gained or lost by this? What's achieved by that? This is what she asks. Let's see if he responds. Next one.
Evam prishtastaya praha madam tat ivalasaha aniccha napi vaktum tamalasya bharam tharaha. Thus asked by her, he, lazy like one intoxicated with spirituous liquor and not desiring even to speak, being slow due to the burden of laziness, spoke to her.
So he is blissed out. So frequently when we have these incredibly deep, ecstatic meditations, when we come back to the world, we're like a drunkard. Oh, leave me alone. I want to go back in. And let's see what happens next. Going on.
Priye vrishrantim anyantam prapta vanasmi vaichirat न बाह्ये दुःखभूयिष्ठे vishvromasti kvachinmatma. Here, after a long time, I have indeed obtained repose very much. There is no repose for me anywhere in the external world with abundant sorrow.
So he is in that state where he realizes the bliss of the self, but he sees the world still as sorrowful. So, what does that mean, practically speaking, for you and me? It's that state wherein, even though I go on a meditation retreat or I'm here in satsang or in my own meditation, I'm very clear about what's going on. I am that partless Brahman. But the world still pisses me off. Now, Shankara addresses this in Viveka Chudamani. One of the most important shlokas is 267. It's one of my favorites, where Shankara says, even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. Rebirth here means I get identified again. It needs to be conscientiously rooted out. How? Through steady and continuous identification with the self. So that we become sthita prajna, inside and out. He says then it is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. It is my vasanas that cause me to get re-identified. And the phenomenon that's going on, technical terminology is called anyonya adhyas, mutual superimposition. I attribute to myself the qualities of the not self. I think I'm my body, or my body plus my personality. But I also attribute to the not self the qualities of the self, meaning I think people, places, things, and conditions have sat existence apart from the self over there. Shit. I think Puneet is conscious and the chair is unconscious. And it's over there. And most insidious ananda. I think happiness is over there. And of course, the opposite of it, misery, is over there. So here, Hemachuda says, leave me alone. This world is all full of sorrow. I want to get away from it and be in samadhi. That is not the highest state. Let's see what she says. Going on.
Alam rijesharo mantha prayavya vyahritaibarhi daurbhagyandho nadhyayavat vidam swatmam satsukham. In vain are the dealings outwardly, which are like a piece of sugarcane with its juice pressed out, or chewing the cud by an animal. Blinded by misfortune, I did not know till today the true happiness of my own self.
So he's discovered that real happiness is the mind abiding in the self. But he still sees the world as problematic. He sees two entities, self, not self. not self-problematic for him. And we get yogis who at this point desire to run away from the world. It's your prarabdha where you're supposed to be. If you're supposed to be a monk in the Himalayas, you will know to go there. And it will be a joy to go, and it will not because of any problem you have with the world. You can also be a householder, have children, have a job, have responsibilities. That in and of itself is not an issue. But if the world bugs you, or the flip side, grabs you by the nose and pulls you around, there's more work to be done. Let's see what she says. Going on.
Yatha kaschit bhiksham nidhanam swam na veda vai tathaham swasukham medhim avidvitva punah punah sukham vaishayakam shreshtham dukkha sandhya bhisamfulam samfutam विद्युद्विलयं मत्वा स्थिरं तत्परतावशात् दुःखैरभिहतो नूनं विश्रान्तिं न तु लब्धवान्. As someone roaming about begging for alms indeed does not know his own treasure, so, not knowing the ocean of happiness in my own self, and regarding again and again the pleasure pertaining to objects of sense, filled with a multitude of troubles and dissolving like lightning, as permanent and most excellent, I certainly did not obtain repose, struck by sorrow on account of exclusive devotion to it, the pleasure.
So he acknowledges one important stage of our sadhana. He, in the earlier stages, was a bhogi. He was out there trying to wring pleasure out of the world. Now he sees it's only a packet of sorrows. He wants to stay away from the world and be in the bliss of his own self-nature. There's much truth to that. Mind you, each of these things that Hemachyuta goes through are a necessary step. Can't skip one. Don't give up the bliss of samadhi until you have the bliss of samadhi. Swami Tejo Mayananda used to say, I woke up this morning and I gave up being president of the United States. It's foolishness. He was never president. He was never going to be president. So we have to move through that stage of knowing the bliss of my own self. And the emptiness of the world. But that doesn't mean that the world is bad. The world is Brahman. Going on.
Aho jana dukkha sukha viveka jnana varjita sukharthino dukkha sangham sanchitanvanti mudha sada tadalam dukkha bhogena swayant nasaditena vai. Alas, people without the knowledge that discriminates between happiness and sorrow, seeking to gain happiness, always gather a multitude of troubles in vain. Therefore, enough of this suffering of pain brought on by my own effort.
So he understands that living that life as a bhogi, seeking enjoyment by satisfying as many desires as possible, is a fruitless endeavor. So at this point, his conclusion is, enough of this world. I give it up. Leave me alone. Let me spend my time in the bliss of samadhi. Going on.
Priye kripam mayi kuru prarthayami kritanjali vrishrantim bhivanshami chiram swasmin sukhatmani. Dear, I pray folding the hands in supplication. Take pity on me. I desire repose for a long time in my own blissful self.
So he doesn't even want to talk to his wife. Leave me alone. Let me go back to my meditation. Let me go back to reveling in the bliss of myself inside. Let's see what happens now. Going on.
Aho deva hata bhasi nyatvapi tvamidam padam tadvishrantim parityajya mudha dukkhaya cheshtase. Alas, you appear to be ill-fated. Though having known this state, abandoning the repose of that state, you behave in vain for suffering sorrow.
So he looks at her and he sees her engaged in the world. And he says, "You must be crazy, girl. Knowing the bliss of samadhi, why are you out there engaged in the world? Shouldn't we all just be in our meditation cushion, blissing out?" Let's see what she says. Going on.
Ityaktva sa priyam praha smayit tveshan manishini nathate tanna viditam padam param mapavanam. Thus told, that wise lady said to her husband, smiling a little, Lord, that extremely holy state is not known to you.
So she says, "You're not done yet." What you've achieved is good and necessary, but there's more. Going on.
Yatra sthitata namuhyanti pandita pavanashanayaha tatpadam duratastesti bhutha syeva nabhastalam. For you, that state remaining in which learned ones with pure hearts are not perplexed is far away as the vault of the sky is for one standing on earth.
So she says essentially the perfect state of the muni, of the woman or man of wisdom. You are far from it, as far as the heavens are from the earth. What you've done is valuable, but you're not done yet. And frankly, many yogis stop at this stage of their sadhana. They have yet to deal with the world. Going on.
Tvaya kinchit suviditam paveda viditopamam nimilyon milyava netre tatpadam na samikshate. What is known by you a little, that is not in entirety, can only be like what is not known. By closing or opening the eyes, that state is not seen or experienced.
So how can it be anything perfect when you have perfect repose with your eyes closed and you open your eyes and you lose it? This is not perfection. It's as good as not knowing anything. even though you know something a little. Going on.
Akritva vapi kritva va न तल्लभ्येत कर्हिचित् अगत्वा चापि वा गत्वा न तदा साधयेत् padam. By doing or even by not doing something, by doing or even not by doing something, that state cannot be obtained at any time. By going or even by not going somewhere, one cannot reach that state.
So it's not about the result of an action. Even the action of the cessation of the mind in samadhi. How can it be perfect if its gain or loss is dependent? Now, this is not covered directly in the text here, but it's an important point that I want to bring up. Many of us think that what this is about is getting high. We want to be in an altered mind state. I'm an old hippie. God knows you won't find anybody who enjoys altered mind states as much as I have. You know, I've loved them, and I love the bliss of Shakti. Oh, I love it. But what we're talking about is the deep repose that is beyond any movement of mind or action, coming and going, doing activity, not doing activity. It's not conditional. And it's funny because now I'm seeing almost a return to some of the ideas that we all had back in the 60s. You know, we're going to find God by dropping LSD. Now they are doing ecstasy and ayahuasca and stuff like that. But the illusion is the same. The illusion is the same. Psychedelics are an illusion about this world. What do I mean by that? When you're on the psychedelic, it tells you that what you're seeing and experiencing is more real than what you did before. This world is an illusion about ultimate reality. So a psychedelic is a double samsara. But so is people who, let's say, do pranayama and they huff and puff and huff and puff and have some momentary ecstatic experience. That's great, feels good, you get real blissful. But it comes and it goes. It's not going on.
Nilya kritva gatva va prapnam purnam katham bhaved yavashtak ima te naiva paksham nom milanitena tu antarhitam yadi tada nanu purnam bhavet padam aho te moha mahatmam amascharya kimaham bhruvaye. How can that which is obtained by closing the eyes, by doing something, or by going somewhere be complete? If due to the opened eyelid of the measure of 8 barley corns only, that state can be hidden or rendered invisible, then would that state be complete? Ah, wonderful is the greatness of your delusion. What shall I say about this wonder?
So if you open your eyes or close your eyes the length of 8 barley corns, how can that be perfect? And oh, I can't wait to get home so I can sit in meditation. Oh, I want to go back to the Himalayas. It's so holy there. We have these ideas, someplace where I am not. Going on, next verse.
Yasmin brahmanda kotinam kotaya kona sanstitaha pakshmano anguli mana syonmi danatirodhitam, in which billions of universes are situated in a corner that is hidden on account of the opening of the eyelid measuring a finger's breadth.
So, does the universe disappear when I close my eyes? No. And again, the problem is adhyas. I do not see what is. I superimpose an externalized existence, misery and joy producing qualities on a world that I think is exterior to consciousness. We want to learn to see as God sees. Next one.
Shrinu Raja Kumaraitat Tattvasaram Vadami Yat Yavat Granti Vibhedo Na Tavat Sukhamachati. Friends, hear this essence of truth which I tell you. As long as there is no breaking or unbinding of the knots, so long as one does not attain to happiness.
So the knots to which she's referring, we call the Hridaya Granthi, the knots of the heart. It's another name for our vasanas. It's remember, a vasana has two powers. It has a veiling power, Varana Shakti, and then projecting power. All sorts of ways of interpreting it. But part of what we can say is I project a world of name and form and then attribute to it joy giving and misery producing qualities. Now, let's see if we can get a sense of where we're working with this. The best image I can use, this is real story. In old-timey days before I lost my sight, I had an RX-7 car, and I used to drive down every summer to Southern California to visit my mother. And I would drive down Highway 5 in July, where it's really hot in the Central Valley of California. And one particular year, I was driving down there, and as I'm driving, I look up ahead, and the floor of the Central Valley was flooded. And you know, this is a major agricultural center for the whole country, for much of the world, for producing produce and things. And it's all irrigated. And I was thinking, oh my God, an irrigation pipe is broken. The whole highway and all the surrounding fields are flooded. And I slow way down and I think, how am I going to get off the highway? There's no other roads to do this. I'm stuck. I don't know how deep this water is or what's going to happen. So I'm just kind of cruising along, slowing down from like 70 or 80 down to like 35. And then I began to see that the floodwaters are moving ahead. And I realized, dang, it's a mirage. I've never seen one like that before. Now, as soon as I realized it was a mirage, I sped back up and continued my trip. Before I realized it was a mirage, my senses reported water. It really looked like water. And my knowledge, my understanding was water. After I investigated, my senses continued to report to me what looked like water. But my knowledge was heat waves off the valley floor. So in Sahaja Samadhi, it doesn't mean that everything goes misty and swirly. No. Your senses will continue to report to you the same names and forms as before. But the eye of wisdom, the jnana chakshu, will have opened. And you will see it differently. How do I come to that? Destroying the knots of the heart. These vasanas that cause my ignorance. Going on, let's see how Hemaleka describes this practice now.
Granthaya kotisha santi moharajju vivartitaha tatra swarupa anvritti moharajju rudirata. There are millions of knots apparent in the rope of delusion. There, the non-recognition of one's own real nature is called the rope of delusion.
Let's read that again. I didn't quite hear the first part of it.
There are millions of knots apparent in the rope of delusion. There, the non-recognition of one's own real nature is called the rope of delusion.
So the rope of delusion has knots in it. Each one of those are our various vasanas or knots of the heart. It is this rope that binds me. Now, what's the word that he used for rope there, Punit? I didn't quite catch it.
You mean the Sanskrit?
Yeah.
I guess moharajju. So the
Rajju. Okay. Yes. Rajju. Okay. The rope. The rope. So she'll now expand a bit on this metaphor. What's interesting is she's kind of playing with reversing a bit a standard Vedantic image. You all know the image of the Rajju Sarpa, the snake and the rope. Same word. I see a snake, I misunderstand this thing, oh, snake, which really there is a rope. But now she's using the rope as our ignorance that binds us. It's interesting play on that metaphor. Going on.
यत्र ता ग्रन्थय सन्ति विपरीत ग्रहात्मिका तत्राध्यादेहमुख्येषु भवेदात्मत्व निश्चयः यद्वा यद्वशादेश संसार आततो दुष्प्रतिक्रियः तथा जगत्यनात्मता बुद्धिर्भानसमाश्रये. In that rope of delusion, there are those knots in the form of contrary or false perceptions. There, the first knot would be the firm conviction of selfhood in entities, of which the body is the chief one, on account of which this course of worldly life, which is difficult to counteract, is spread. So also the belief in the non-selfhood of the world, which rests on appearance, like the reflection in a mirror, is the second knot.
So the first knot is I am a person. I am Jim, this lump of flesh. And you all are separate persons, equally lumpy flesh. The knot numbered 1. Other scriptures will call this Jiva Bhavana, the attitude or the belief that I'm a person, that I'm an individual. That's the first knot. The second is the belief in the separate and substantive reality of the world of name and form. When I don't see it as consciousness appearing as name and form, as is, God appearing as the world of name and form, right where the problem seems to be sin, sickness, and death. God is. Mind you, I'm not saying God wants people to suffer. What I'm saying is, if you have a nightmare, it's still unreal. It's still just imagination. It's still just your mind. It is your mind appearing as the nightmare. That's the second knot. Next verse.
एवं जीवेश भेदादि निश्चया ग्रन्थयो मताः एतच्चिरातसम्मुद्ध भूतं भूय सवर्तितं च वै ग्रन्थे रूपं समापन्नं पुरुष पाशितस्ततः तद्ग्रन्थि विसृन्सन्नतो बन्धान्मुक्ति समीरिता. Thus, the firm belief in the difference between the individual soul and God and such other beliefs are considered as knots. This false perception, which has arisen for a long time and indeed made to occur repeatedly, has acquired the nature of a knot, and because of that, man is bound. Liberation from the bondage is accomplished on account of the untying of that knot.
So some of these knots are easier to untie than others. Have you ever had, you've tied your shoes, and if they're not good cotton laces, they come undone, so you double tie them another knot. And then as you walked around during the day, the knot's really tightened, and in the evening, when you want to take your shoes off, and it's really hard pull apart that knot. You see. So many of these knots of the heart by which we're bound up are difficult to work out. What is it that I need to do? Give up this jiva bhavana. I'm not a person. No personal sense of self is real. Koham, who am I? I am that ground of being, that witnessing consciousness. Second knot, what is this world? Though it appears name and form, it is like a mirage. It is like an imagination. It's what it is. Right where the trouble seems to be, there is Brahman. I don't need to struggle. I don't need to worry. Now, we're moving into territory where you've got to be very careful about how you talk to other people. For example, I was talking with a student whose mother passed away from COVID in India. And the appropriate thing for us to do is to say, I'm so sorry. How can I be of support? I will pray for you and your family and for your mother. That's what we do. But what does the 11th verse of the 2nd chapter of Gita say? Anybody remember that one? Krishna's first teaching. You grieve for whom you should not grieve, though you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor the dead. How can you say that in the midst of COVID in India, Jim? Nobody really dies. It's just the play of consciousness. It's a nightmare. But it's no more real than a nightmare. Every single one of those people is birthless and changeless and deathless. Even at the level of the subtle body. They get sick, they stop breathing, they die. Subtle body goes on, takes on another body. Dying is safe in the end. That's for us yogis to know. We don't beat people up with that. But what you can do when someone who's suffering comes to you, one level you hear them go blah, 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 blah. Problem, 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 problem. But what you can do is hold it. This person may not know it now, but the truth is, it's all okay. Right where the trouble seems to be, there is God. You might even try saying, and I know that they know that it's God. A little bit of dream shaping here. And you will find that you will become a healing presence in the world. We we think if we get down there in the enmeshment, oh, I will cry and weep along with you, that helps. We listen to them. A burden shared is a burden lightened. But as yogis, right where the trouble seems to be, there is Brahman. There God is. It's all okay. Don't say it, be it. Any thoughts on this? True story. This is going back maybe 20 years. I was reading an article in a magazine, and it was a Westerner who was following the Dalai Lama's personal physician as he was joining the residents in rounds at a medical facility at a hospital. They wanted to see how good the guy was, you know. So they took him to the bedside of this fellow who had a heart condition that was fatal. And the Lama, who was the Dalai Lama's physician, just put his hands on his pulse, on his wrist, and went into deep meditation for like 45 minutes. And then when they came out of it, the patient said, "Thank you, doctor. I feel so much better now." Then he goes into the room, the conference room, and in the language of poetry, he was able to absolutely diagnose what the heart condition was, where there was a hole in a valve or something like that. I can't remember the particulars. But that wasn't the important part. The important part is he became a healing presence by acknowledging the totality of the infinite, right where the trouble seems to be. There God is. Any thoughts on this? All right. Which number are we on, Puneet?
We finished. I forget.
25, I think.
Yeah, we finished. No, we finished 26, 27.
Okay.
Someone keep track of it. Do we have a consensus?
No, you're right. We finished 24, 25. Yeah, we're going to do 26, 27 next week.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, little bit of calendaring before we go into meditation. So today is the 6th. Next Thursday, the 13th, we will meet completely and solely on Zoom, as we have been doing. On the 20th, we will start our hybrid classes. So if you're in the area and if you're fully vaccinated and at your full level of immunity, I think that's 2 weeks after your second shot, I think I misspoke in the email I sent out. I think at J&J you are at full immunity after 2 weeks, not 4 weeks. I was corrected. So you're more than welcome to come. And we will also do it hybrid. We will continue to Zoom for those of you who are distant. We will change the structure. We will meditate in the beginning for 20 minutes and then move into scripture, because that sets the gestalt of the room in a little bit better sense. Any thoughts or questions about that?
So the time we start remains the same, right?
The time we start will be the same.
Okay.
We will start promptly at 7:30. All right. Any other thoughts or questions? We have another 5 minutes or so. If anybody has any questions on the content. This is hard stuff. This idea of seeing the self in and through all the objects. And if you can just start with the idea, my senses may not be telling me the absolute truth. This is all part of Ishwara's dream. It's all going to be okay. I don't need to worry. I don't need to struggle. I can take it easy. We just can start with that much. We can move into this insight. Any other thoughts? Let's sit then.